Have you ever noticed that anger almost always shows up disguised as reason? It does not come saying, "I am here to destroy your peace." It comes saying, "You need to defend yourself." It comes saying, "Don't let them talk to you like that." It comes saying, "Answer now." It comes saying, "If you stay silent, they will think you are weak." And that is exactly why so many people obey anger without even realizing it. Imagine this situation. Someone speaks to you with a cold, disrespectful tone. Maybe it happens at work, maybe it happens at home, maybe it comes from someone close to you. Someone who knows exactly what to say to touch your deepest wound. At first, you try to stay calm. You breathe. You pretend you did not hear it clearly. You try not to give it importance. But then the person insists. They say it again. They push a little harder. And suddenly, something changes inside you. Your chest gets hot, your jaw tightens. Your breathing becomes shorter. Your mind starts preparing harsh answers. You remember old things? You connect past wounds with the present moment. And in a matter of seconds, a dangerous certainty appears in your mind. Now I have to respond. But many times, what comes out of your mouth in that moment is not your strength. It is your wound speaking for you. And later, when everything is over, that uncomfortable silence arrives. You remember the way you spoke? You remember the look on the other person's face. You remember that sentence that came out heavier than it needed to. And maybe, deep down, you know you were right. But you lost your reason because of the way you reacted. Anger does that. It takes a situation that could have been handled with firmness and turns it into regret. It takes a difficult conversation and turns it into war. It takes a small moment and turns it into a bitter memory. And maybe you have already lived this. Maybe you once sent a message in the heat of the moment and later wished you could erase it. Maybe you raised your voice at someone who did not deserve all that weight. Maybe you lost an opportunity because you answered with a hot head. Maybe you tried to prove that you were right. And in the end, all you proved was that you had lost control. Stoicism does not teach you to pretend that you do not feel anger. That would be impossible. Anger is a human emotion. It appears. It moves through the body. It tells you that something inside you has been touched. Something bothered you. Something felt unfair. But Stoicism teaches something far more powerful: to feel anger without handing it the command of your life. Because there is a huge difference between feeling anger and being governed by it. The problem is not that the emotion appears. The problem begins when you obey the first order that emotion gives you. Anger wants speed. Self-control requires pause. Anger wants an immediate answer. Wisdom asks for distance. Anger wants to win the argument. Maturity wants to preserve respect. And here is one of the greatest truths about emotional control. Many times, the strongest person in the room is not the one who speaks the loudest. It is the one who remains whole when everything inside them is begging them to react. Marcus Aurelius understood this. As Emperor, he had to deal with criticism, betrayal, pressure, interests, injustice, and difficult people. But he trained his mind to remember that the behavior of others did not have to determine his own. And this is a simple but profound idea. The other person may act badly, but you do not need to become what you criticize. Someone may be rude. You do not need to lose your dignity. Someone may be unfair. You do not need to lose your clarity. Someone may try to provoke you. You do not need to hand over control of your mind as if it were an object in their hands. Because when someone can easily pull you out of your center, that person gains power over you. And this is the painful truth. Anger often feels like defense, but in reality, it is surrender. You think you are standing up for yourself, but you are showing where your most sensitive button is. You think you are controlling the situation, but you are only reacting to someone else's movement. You think you are protecting your respect, but maybe you are destroying exactly what you wanted to preserve. That is why, before reacting, you need to ask yourself one question. Will this response solve anything, or will it only relieve my anger for a few seconds? That question can change everything. Because anger offers quick pleasure. Saying what was trapped inside can give you a temporary feeling of power. Answering harshly can feel liberating. Sending that cold message can feel like justice. Raising your voice can feel like defense. But then comes the price. And the price of anger almost never appears at the beginning. It appears later. It appears in the damaged relationship, in the broken trust, in a wounded image, in a silent guilt, in the lost opportunity, in the sentence you can no longer erase. That is why the Stoic does not ask only, "Am I right?" The Stoic also asks, "What will be the cost of acting this way?" Because you can be right in content and wrong in form. You can have reasons to be upset, but you do not need to destroy yourself to prove it. Think about how many times anger made you look like someone you are not. Maybe you are a good person, but for a few seconds, you looked cruel. Maybe you are an intelligent person, but for a few seconds, you looked uncontrolled. Maybe you are someone who loves deeply, but for a few seconds, you hurt someone who only needed calm. Maybe you are a strong person, but for a few seconds, you became a prisoner of a provocation. And the most dangerous part is this. When it happens too many times, people start remembering your explosions more than your qualities. You can build respect for years and lose part of it in minutes. That is why controlling anger is not weakness. It is protection, it is strategy, it is maturity. Silence, when used with awareness, is not cowardice. Sometimes it is the highest form of self-command. But listen carefully. Stoicism is not telling you to accept humiliation, swallow everything, or let people walk all over you. That is not emotional control. That is repression. Emotional control does not mean never responding. It means choosing how to respond. There is a difference between exploding and positioning yourself. There is a difference between attacking and setting a boundary. There is a difference between shouting and being firm. There is a difference between losing your mind and saying clearly, "I do not accept being treated this way." Anger wants to destroy. Firmness wants to resolve. And if you want to start mastering your anger, you need to train 3 moments. The first moment is the body. Before anger becomes words, it becomes sensation. Your body warns you before your mouth speaks. You feel the heat, the tension, the acceleration, the impulse, the need to answer. That is the first warning. And if you learn to recognize it, you gain a few precious seconds. And a few seconds can save a relationship, a decision, your image, your peace, even an important part of your life. When you feel anger rising, do not try to pretend everything is fine while inside you are at war. First, recognize it mentally. I am feeling anger. That alone creates distance. You do not say, "I am anger." You say, "I am feeling anger." It seems small, but it changes a lot, because what you can observe no longer controls you. In the same way, the second moment is the pause. Anger hates the pause because it survives through impulse. So before you respond, do something simple. Breathe and delay the answer. It does not have to be dramatic. It can be just a few seconds. It can be drinking water. It can be looking away for a moment. It can be saying, "I prefer to think before I answer." It can be leaving the room for a few minutes. Many people lose control because they believe they need to solve everything immediately. But not every answer needs to be immediate. Some responses become wiser after the emotion goes down. A mature person is not someone who never feels the desire to explode. A mature person is someone who has learned not to turn every impulse into action. The third moment is the choice of response. After the pause, ask yourself, what response brings me closer to the person I want to become? This question is powerful because it takes you out of instinct and brings you back to identity. Do you want to be respected? Then do not answer like someone who is dominated. Do you want to be firm? Then do not act like someone who is lost. Do you want to be wise? Then do not allow a provocation to decide your posture. Stoicism, at its core, is identity training. In every provocation, you are choosing who is in command, your consciousness or your impulse. And here is a difficult truth. Some people will provoke you exactly because they know they can control you. They know one sentence is enough. One look is enough. One irony is enough. One criticism is enough. And suddenly, you leave your center. But when you stop reacting like before, something changes. The person expects your explosion, but finds silence. They expect desperation, but find firmness. They expect attack, but find control. They expect you to lower yourself, but you remain whole. That confuses those who were used to controlling you through your emotions. And of Achimi, you begin to feel something new. Real power. Not the noisy power of anger, but the silent power of someone who is not easily dragged away. That is the kind of strength Stoicism builds. A strength that does not need to humiliate. It does not need to shout. It does not need to prove itself all the time. It does not need to win every argument, because it understands that the greatest victory, many times, is not becoming a prisoner of your own reaction. If this makes sense to you, comment below. I choose control, not as a pretty phrase, but as a commitment, because maybe today you need to remember this more than you imagine. Now, there is something important. Controlling anger does not mean you will always get it right. You will still fail. You will still answer badly sometimes. You will still feel the blood rising. You will still want to say something you know you should not say. That is part of the process. But every time you notice anger earlier, you are evolving. Before, you exploded and only realized it after destroying something. Then, you exploded and realized it right after. Then, you started noticing it in the middle of the explosion. Then, you started noticing it before speaking. And one day, you feel the anger, but you no longer obey it. That is real progress. It is not about becoming a stone without emotions. It is about becoming someone who feels deeply, but acts consciously. And maybe that is one of the greatest signs of a mature human being, not being dominated by every internal storm. Anger will appear again. Maybe today, maybe in a conversation, in a criticism, in traffic, at work, at home, a message. And when it appears, remember this, anger will try to convince you that reacting now is strength. But ask yourself, do I want to win this moment, or do I want to preserve the person I am becoming? Because sometimes the strongest answer is to wait. Sometimes the wisest phrase is no phrase at all. Sometimes the greatest sign of self-respect is refusing to lower yourself to the level of the provocation. Sometimes mastering anger does not change only one conversation. It changes the direction of your life. Anger blinds you because it narrows your vision. It makes you see only the offense, only the attack, only the pain, only the need to respond. But wisdom expands your vision. It makes you see consequences, values, the future, character, and in the end, that is what truly matters. Not only what they did to you, but what you decided to do with what you felt. So before you react, remember, you do not need to hand your peace to someone who cannot even take care of their own. You do not need to destroy your respect to prove that you have value. You do not need to become a slave to an emotion that'll leave later, while you remain with the consequences. Feel the anger, observe the anger, learn from the anger, but do not allow it to sit on the throne of your mind, because when your anger governs, you lose. But when your consciousness governs, even your silence becomes strength. In the next video of this series, we will talk about another emotion that paralyzes many people before the battle even begins: fear. And if you want to learn how to master your emotions without losing your peace, subscribe to the channel, because this series was created for those who are tired of being controlled by what they feel. And before you leave, take this phrase with you: true strength is not found in exploding. It is found in staying in command when everything inside you wants to lose control.